Based on the uploaded story, adapted with Steven Seagal replacing the original champion, the entire arena believed they were about to witness another easy victory. 500 spectators filled every seat inside Long Beach Arena on a warm California afternoon in the spring of 1972. The atmosphere felt electric. Fighters from dozens of schools stood proudly around the competition floor. Karate practitioners, judo champions, kung fu instructors, wrestlers, boxers, martial arts enthusiasts from across the country. Everyone had gathered to see one man, Steven Seagal. At only 20 years old, Steven had already built a growing reputation among martial artists who admired his aggressive style and unwavering confidence. Tall, broad-shouldered, powerful, he stood at the center of the stage wearing a spotless white gi. The arena lights reflected off the fabric. His black belt hung perfectly around his waist. Every movement seemed calculated. Every glance carried confidence. To many people in attendance, Steven looked unstoppable, and that was exactly the problem. Because over the last few years, confidence had slowly become arrogance. Applause followed him everywhere. Victories followed him everywhere. People constantly praised him, and eventually he began believing something dangerous. He began believing he had nothing left to learn. Crowd erupted when the announcer handed him the microphone. Steven smiled. He loved moments like this. Moments where hundreds of people listened to every word. Moments where he could remind everyone why he was becoming one of the most talked about young martial artists in California. He raised one hand. The arena slowly became quiet. Then he began speaking. Martial arts are supposed to reveal truth. The audience nodded. Real combat reveals what works and what doesn't. More applause. Steven paced slowly across the stage, but somewhere along the way he paused. People started confusing entertainment with effectiveness. Several spectators exchanged curious looks. The tone of the speech was changing. Steven continued. People see fast movements, fancy techniques, dramatic demonstrations, and they assume they're watching real fighting. The crowd remained silent, listening carefully. Steven's voice grew stronger, but reality doesn't care about appearance. It only cares about results. A wave of applause rolled across the arena. Steven smiled. The reaction encouraged him. Then came the sentence that changed everything. I believe many martial arts are built on illusion. The room suddenly felt different. Several instructors shifted uncomfortably. Others crossed their arms. A few whispered among themselves. Steven continued anyway, because now he was enjoying the tension, especially Chinese kung fu. The arena became noticeably quieter. People talk about it as if it's magic. A few nervous laughs appeared. Steven smiled. Fast hands, fancy forms, dramatic movements. But when real pressure arrives, his voice hardened. Most of it falls apart. The silence became heavy. Some people looked offended. Others seemed fascinated. But Steven wasn't finished. Not even close. He slowly walked toward the front edge of the stage, then pointed toward the audience. If Kung Fu really works, he said loudly, why don't we see it? Dominating tournaments. No one answered. Steven nodded, exactly the reaction he expected. Then he delivered the line everyone would remember. Kung Fu is beautiful, a pause, but beauty isn't fighting. The words landed like a punch. Several Chinese martial artists in attendance looked visibly upset. Some older masters shook their heads, but Steven kept going. If I'm wrong, he said, then prove it. The arena froze. A challenge, a direct challenge. Steven looked across hundreds of faces. If there is any Kung Fu practitioner here today, his voice echoed through the building, come up here and prove me wrong. No one moved, at least not immediately. The silence stretched. 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds. Steven's smile grew wider. He believed the silence was proof. Proof that nobody wanted to challenge him. Proof that nobody could challenge him. Then he made a mistake. A very big mistake. He laughed, not loudly, just enough. Enough to show contempt. Enough to show disrespect. Enough to convince himself he had already won. That's what I thought. A few spectators laughed nervously. Steven leaned toward the microphone. I'll even make it easy. Light contact. No embarrassment, more laughter. Then his eyes narrowed. Unless he said, all the Kung Fu men here are exactly what I expected. The arena waited. Steven smiled, all talk. The words echoed through the building. And in row 14, Bruce Lee finally moved. The movement was almost invisible. A small shift, a calm breath, nothing dramatic, nothing theatrical. But for 12 people inside that arena, it felt like thunder because those 12 people recognized him immediately. They knew exactly who he was, and they understood something terrifying. Steven Seagal had just challenged Bruce Lee, sat quietly in a black shirt and black trousers. No belt, no rank, no title displayed, nothing that demanded attention, nothing that suggested danger. Yet the moment he stood up, the atmosphere changed. A martial arts instructor sitting beside him immediately leaned closer. "Bruce," he whispered. "Don't." Bruce didn't answer. His eyes remained fixed on the stage, on Steven Seagal, on the arrogance, on the challenge, because this was no longer about martial arts. It was about truth. And Bruce Lee had never been the kind of man who stayed silent when truth was being buried beneath ego. Slowly, he stepped into the aisle. People nearby turned to look. Then more people noticed. Then entire sections of the arena began turning their heads. The movement spread like a wave. Steven noticed. His smile faded slightly. "What is it?" he called out. "You have something to say?" Bruce continued walking, calm, relaxed, completely fearless. Finally, he stopped. The entire arena stared. And then Bruce Lee spoke, not loudly, not aggressively, but with a calm confidence that somehow carried farther than shouting ever could. "I accept your challenge." The arena went silent, completely silent. Steven blinked. For a moment he looked genuinely confused. Then he laughed. "You?" Bruce nodded. "Yes." The crowd watched in disbelief. Most people still had no idea who the man in black was, but that was about to change. And before the afternoon was over, everyone in Long Beach Arena would know his name. The silence inside Long Beach Arena felt unnatural. 500 people sat frozen in their seats. Nobody whispered, nobody laughed, nobody moved. Every eye was fixed on the man standing in the aisle, Bruce Lee. For years, people had heard stories, stories about impossible speed, stories about strange training methods, stories about a fighter who seemed to move differently from everyone else. Many believed those stories, many didn't, but now they were about to find out for themselves. Steven Seagal stood at center stage with the microphone still in his hand. For a moment, he simply stared. Then he laughed. Not because he recognized Bruce Lee, because he didn't. Not yet. He laughed because Bruce didn't look threatening. No white gi, no championship trophies, no belt, no entourage, no visible proof of greatness. Just a lean man in black clothes calmly accepting a challenge. To Steven, it looked ridiculous. "You," Steven repeated. Bruce nodded. "Yes." The audience exchanged glances. Steven slowly shook his head. "You practice kung fu?" "I do," Steven smirked. "And you're volunteering to defend it?" Bruce answered immediately. "I'm volunteering to defend the truth." The words landed harder than anyone expected. Several instructors looked at each other. Steven's smile faded slightly. There was something unusual about this man, something difficult to explain. Most challengers tried to prove themselves. This one looked like he had nothing to prove. The tournament organizer slowly stood. He understood the danger. He knew Bruce Lee, and unlike most people in the building, he knew exactly what could happen next. The organizer approached the microphone. Steven issued an open challenge. He looked at Bruce, then at Steven. "If both men agree, we can allow a controlled demonstration." The audience immediately erupted with excitement. Steven smiled. Perfect. This was exactly what he wanted. A public demonstration, an opportunity to expose kung fu in front of hundreds of witnesses. He handed the microphone back, then pointed toward the stage. "Come on up." Bruce climbed the stairs. No rush, no emotion, no anger. Every step seemed calm, measured, intentional. The closer he came, the more uncomfortable Steven felt. Not fear, just uncertainty, a feeling he wasn't used to. When Bruce finally reached the platform, the contrast between the two men became obvious. Steven was taller, broader, heavier. Bruce looked almost small beside him. Several spectators immediately began whispering, "That's him. He doesn't look dangerous. Steven's going to destroy him." Others remained silent, especially the older martial artists. They weren't looking at Bruce's size. They were looking at his eyes, his posture, his stillness, and what they saw made them nervous. Because experienced fighters understand something beginners rarely notice. The most dangerous person in the room is often the calmest. Steven crossed his arms. "What style do you practice?" "Wing Chun." Steven nodded sarcastically. "Anything else?" Bruce answered, "Jeet Kune." Steven frowned. The name meant nothing to him. "What kind of style is that?" Bruce looked directly into his eyes. "It's not a style." Steven laughed. "That doesn't even make sense." Bruce smiled slightly. "Exactly." The audience reacted with surprised laughter. For the first time all afternoon, Steven wasn't controlling the conversation. That irritated him. The organizer stepped between them. "Remember," he looked at both men. "Controlled demonstration." Both nodded. But deep inside, Steven had already made a decision. He wanted to embarrass Bruce Lee in front of everyone. He wanted the audience laughing when it was over. He wanted them leaving the arena convinced that kung fu was useless. And most importantly, he wanted Bruce Lee regretting that he had stood up. The organizers stepped away. The crowd leaned forward. Steven dropped into a textbook fighting stance. Sharp, formal, disciplined. Years of practice were visible in every angle, every position, every movement. The audience applauded. It looked impressive. Then everyone looked at Bruce and immediately became confused because Bruce didn't assume a traditional stance. No deep posture, no dramatic preparation, no ritual, no performance. He simply raised his hands, relaxed, loose, alive. Steven frowned. "That's your stance?" Bruce nodded. "It works." Several spectators laughed. Steven smiled. Good. The crowd was still on his side. The signal had not even started, and already Bruce looked unconventional, strange, almost careless, exactly what Steven expected. But among the experienced martial artists watching, something felt wrong. Very wrong. One karate instructor quietly whispered to his friend, "Look at his feet." His friend looked, then his eyes widened. Bruce wasn't rooted. He wasn't locked into position. He looked ready to move in any direction instantly, like a predator waiting. Steven cracked his neck. The audience grew silent again. The organizer raised his hand. Everyone held their breath. The signal dropped, and Steven exploded forward fast, much faster than most people expected. His first attack was a powerful straight punch aimed directly at Bruce's chest. The audience gasped. The technique was beautiful, sharp, explosive, precise, but something strange happened. Bruce wasn't there, not exactly. He hadn't jumped away. He hadn't blocked. He hadn't retreated. He had simply moved barely, just enough. Steven's fist sliced through empty air. The audience blinked. Some thought they had missed something. Steven quickly recovered. No problem. One missed attack meant nothing. He attacked again. Another punch, then another, then a kick. Bruce moved again effortlessly. The attacks kept missing. Not by much, by inches, but they kept missing. The crowd grew quieter. Every second felt stranger. Steven attacked again and again and again. Nothing landed, not a single clean strike. The audience began exchanging nervous looks. This wasn't supposed to happen. Bruce wasn't blocking. He wasn't counterattacking. He wasn't fighting back. He was simply making Steven miss. And somehow that was even more humiliating. Sweat began appearing on Steven's forehead, not from exhaustion, from frustration. For the first time that afternoon, he was losing control. Bruce remained calm, relaxed, his breathing unchanged, his expression unchanged, as if Steven's best attacks meant nothing. Then Bruce finally spoke softly, only loud enough for Steven to hear. "You're trying too hard." Steven's jaw tightened. "What?" Bruce's eyes never left him. "You're fighting your expectations." The words hit like a slap. Steven immediately charged again, harder, faster, angrier, and this time Bruce Lee finally moved forward. The entire arena gasped, because everyone instantly realized something terrifying. Bruce Lee had spent the last minute defending. Now he was about to attack. The moment Bruce Lee stepped forward, everything changed. For nearly a full minute, the audience had watched Steven Seagal attack. Punches, kicks, entries, combinations. Every technique had been fast. Every technique had been technically correct. And every technique had failed. Now Bruce Lee was moving forward, and somehow that felt far more dangerous than anything that had happened so far. A strange silence spread through Long Beach Arena. 500 people leaned forward in their seats. No one wanted to blink. No one wanted to miss what came next. Steven felt it too, for the first time all afternoon. He felt pressure, real pressure, not from the crowd, not from the judges, from the man standing in front of him. Bruce's eyes never changed. No anger, no excitement, no need to prove anything, just calm certainty. Steven clenched his jaw, then attacked again. A powerful straight punch shot toward Bruce's face. This time, Bruce didn't evade. His hand moved. A tiny movement, barely visible. Yet somehow, Steven's punch was redirected completely offline. Before Steven could react, Bruce stepped inside fast. So fast that half the audience didn't even register the movement. One moment he was outside range, the next moment he was standing directly in front of Steven. The distance had vanished. Steven's eyes widened. For a split second he lost sight of him, and that single moment was enough. Bruce's right fist shot forward, a perfectly straight punch. Direct, explosive, precise. It stopped less than an inch from Steven's nose. The audience gasped. Steven froze. Every fighter in the building understood exactly what they had just witnessed. If Bruce wanted to land, he would have landed easily. Bruce lowered his hand. The crowd remained silent. Steven took a step backward. For the first time that day, the confidence on his face cracked. Not completely, but enough. Bruce spoke quietly. "You see," Steven stared at him. Bruce continued. "Speed is useless if your mind arrives late." The words hit harder than a punch. Several instructors nodded silently. They understood. Steven attacked again, this time aggressively. He wasn't trying to demonstrate anymore. He was trying to win. Punch, punch, kick, entry, throw, attempt. Everything came faster now, harder now, more emotional. And that was exactly what Bruce wanted, because emotional fighters become predictable. Bruce flowed through every attack. His body moved like water. No wasted energy, no unnecessary movement, no tension. Every strike Steven threw seemed to meet empty space. Every grab found nothing. Every attempt to control Bruce failed. The audience couldn't believe what they were seeing. The rising Aikido champion looked helpless, not weak, not unskilled, helpless, because every answer he knew had already been solved. Steven launched a powerful roundhouse kick. Bruce stepped inside. Again, a quick hand trapped Steven's arm. A second hand checked his shoulder. A third movement disrupted his balance. Steven stumbled. The crowd gasped. Bruce released him immediately. No humiliation, no showboating, no celebration. Just another lesson that somehow made it worse. Because Steven realized something terrifying. Bruce wasn't trying to defeat him. Bruce was teaching him in front of everyone. The realization stung. His pride hated it. His ego hated it. But deep inside, he knew it was true. Steven roared and charged forward again, this time with everything. No hesitation, no caution, no strategy, just force. The audience held its breath. Bruce stood perfectly still, waiting. The distance closed. 5 FT, 4, 3, 2, then Bruce exploded. His famous straight blast launched forward. 1 punch, 2 punches, 3 punches, 4 punches, 5 punches. The strike stopped mere inches from Steven's face, chest, and throat. Each one perfectly placed. Each one arriving before Steven could defend. The crowd erupted. People literally stood from their seats. Several judges exchanged shocked looks. One veteran instructor slowly shook his head. He had spent 30 years studying martial arts, and even he struggled to believe what he had just seen. Steven stood frozen, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his face. Bruce calmly lowered his hands, then stepped back. The entire arena became silent again. Steven looked around. For the first time that afternoon, he saw the expressions on people's faces. Shock, amazement, disbelief, and something else. Understanding. The audience understood who the better fighter was, and so did he. Bruce looked directly at him, then spoke the words that changed everything. Martial arts are not about proving you are better than someone else. The arena listened. They are about improving yourself. Steven remained silent. Bruce continued. The moment you believe you have nothing left to learn, you stop growing. Every word landed like a hammer. Because Bruce wasn't speaking only to Steven, he was speaking to everyone. The judges, the instructors, the students, the audience, everyone. Steven lowered his head. For several seconds he said nothing. The entire arena waited. Then slowly he bowed, not because someone told him to, not because the rules required it, because he had finally understood. The audience erupted into thunderous applause, the loudest applause of the entire tournament. Bruce immediately returned the bow, showing the same respect he had shown from the beginning. Steven straightened. His voice was quiet now, very different from the arrogant voice that had challenged the crowd earlier. I underestimated you. Bruce nodded. Yes. A few people laughed. Even Steven smiled slightly. For the first time that day, the smile was genuine, not arrogant, not mocking, honest. Steven extended his hand. Bruce shook it. The crowd applauded even louder. Then Steven asked the question nobody expected. Not the audience, not the judges, not even Bruce. Can you teach me? The arena fell silent once again. Bruce studied him, searching his face, looking for pride, looking for excuses, looking for ego. Instead, he found sincerity. At last, Bruce smiled. If you're willing to unlearn, he cleared his throat, said, then yes. The crowd exploded. People stood to their feet. Judges applauded. Instructors applauded. Students applauded. 500 people witnessed something much greater than a fight. They witnessed a transformation. The day had started with a champion trying to humiliate another martial art. It ended with a champion becoming a student. And as Bruce Lee quietly walked back toward row 14, the entire arena understood one thing. The most dangerous man in the building had never needed a title, never needed a belt, never needed a microphone, because true mastery doesn't announce itself. It reveals itself when the moment arrives. And on that unforgettable afternoon in Long Beach, Bruce Lee had changed the meaning of martial arts forever.